Hello and welcome to another EAStalk webinar. Today with us is Luis Conceição. Luis is a co-founder, co-CEO and R&D director at SPAROS Lda in Portugal. He obtained his MSc in Aquatic Sciences at IGBAS Porto University in Portugal, MSc in Aquaculture and PhD in Fish Nutrition at Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Past positions as postdoc at Sintef Aquaculture in Trondheim, Norway, and CCMAR at University of Algarve, Faro, Portugal. He has 20 years experience in sustainable aquaculture and fish nutrition, including development of nutritional solutions and coordination of R&D projects. Title of the presentation Luis will give in a couple of minutes is Tools for Precision Feeding in Aquaculture. My name is Anna Viskovic and I will moderate this webinar. Luis will present a 30-minute presentation, and after that we will allocate some time for all of your questions. So make sure that you write the questions you have in the Q&A box. This webinar is recorded and video will be provided to all of you by the beginning of the next week. Also, the presentation slides will be available to download on the EAS website if you are a member of the society. Before Luis starts with the presentation, I would like to mention that SPAROS Lda is a dedicated sponsor of the EAS student group since 2015, so for 8 years already. On behalf of the student group, we are really thankful for your support and support of all of our activities. And we look very much forward to have you with us in the following years as well. Luis, the floor is yours and you can start with the presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, and thank you also and EAS for inviting us for this EAS talk. It's our pleasure to be here and to continue collaborating with the European Aquaculture Society. So today I will talk about tools for precision feeding in aquaculture, and I will focus it on the experience of SPAROS on this field. For those who don't know SPAROS, we are a science and technology driven company who looks to develop new products and tailored nutritional solutions for the aquaculture market. SPAROS was created in 2008 as a startup of the Center of Marine Sciences of the University of Algarve. The two founders were Jorge Dias and myself, and we are now in the transition from what is called a startup to a scale-up. And our mission is to convert knowledge in nutrition into solutions which can be used for fish farming, fish and shrimp farming. And we try to center our activity around the sustainability challenges that the aquaculture industry faces. I mean, those are multiple, as we all know, biological ones, environmental ones, consumer perception challenges, also coastal area occupation issues. And at SPAROS, we try to transform these challenges into opportunities for our activities. And if we talk about tools for precision feeding in SPAROS, we look at precision feeding in different perspectives. I mean, we believe that the precision feeding is something, it's a must that the aquaculture industry will have to go to. I mean, we know that feeding costs can be up to 50% of operational costs in many fish farms, and so any savings in feeding can have a large impact on the business economic sustainability. And of course we know that feeding, when I say feeding, I'm talking in the broad sense. I mean nutrition, so the feeds given, but also the way it is given. So that's nutrition and feeding when I say feeding. So what do we do at SPAROS? I mean, I will go a bit into more detail into each one of these tools that we use. So we have a pilot feed mill, which can be used for production of aquafeeds. That's one of the things that we do for longer and for what we are more well known. We also perform nutritional trials with fish and shrimp in collaboration with our sister company, the EAStalk, also here in Portugal. We also develop tailored microfeeds for hatcheries, especially for marine fish, but not just. We also develop digital nutritional tools. I will talk a bit more about that in a while. And for all these activities, they are strongly embedded into R&D projects, both at the national level and also at the European level, and sometimes beyond Europe as well. And there we try two things in these R&D projects. Of course, we want to gain knowledge, but we also want to develop our products and services. And if we talk about European projects, I mean, I give here three examples, projects which have finished the last year or so. The Magnificent project, where we were looking at microalgae as a source of nutritional ingredients for food and feed, and also cosmetics. It was a biorefinery type of project where we got some interesting results. The other project, another project we have been involved is the GAIN project, which was about aquaculture eco-intensification, and we were strongly involved in the nutrition part of that project. And then also the Seafood Tomorrow was a project on giving value, nutritional value to fish and other seafood, and to transmit that message to consumers so that we can valorize the aquaculture products. Overall, at the moment, we have 10 ongoing R&D projects, 3 European, 3 Eurostars, which are projects that are in collaboration between different companies in Europe, typically much smaller projects, consortia than the large Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020 projects. And then we have some national projects also ongoing. And we also strongly believe that knowledge really matters, and we want to have a strong connection to our industry, and that's why we are members of EAS from the beginning of our existence. Also, we are members for a long time now of the EATIP, the European Aquaculture Technology and Innovation Platform. As Anna mentioned, we are also proud to be sponsor of the European Aquaculture Student Group. We are also involved in 3 doctoral programs, one national, the SunFeed program, together with the University of Porto, or coordinated by the University of Porto, and also 2 ITNs from the Marie Curie scheme, the Biomed Aqu and the Easy Train. And we also have a strong collaboration with many R&D university institutions here in Portugal, and also elsewhere. So going a bit more into details into our in the tools that we have developed, that we believe that can be of use for the industry for precision feeding in aquaculture. The first one is our microdiets or microfeeds, which we developed them based on 3 pillars. The first one is to, of course, to comply with the nutritional requirements, both in terms of macronutrients, but also in micronutrients such as vitamins and minerals. Of course, this is not easy because we don't know exactly what are the nutritional requirements for even for bigger fish, and the more for the first ages. So, but we try to estimate them as good as we can, and we have to make decisions there, and we do them. The second pillar then is that we have to look for premium, or often we look for ultra premium ingredients. And then, of course, the most important thing is that they have the right nutrients, of course, but also that they are highly digestible and that they become easily bioavailable to the fish larvae after they are ingested. And then the third pillar is the physical properties of the macrodiets, which are very important because, I mean, we need to preserve very good water quality in the larval rearing tanks. And at the same time, we want the feed to have the right physical behavior, being as close as possible to neutral buoyance with a slow sinking, ideally, and then we also have to worry about nutrient leaching. I mean, small particles are very prone to losing water-soluble nutrients, such as some vitamins, some minerals, free amino acids, and other molecules which are soluble in water. So to tackle all these requirements for a successful microdiet, we have to look for the right technology, and we have done a lot of research on that aspect. And also we have to keep in mind that we want to have, in a very small particle, we want to have all these nutrients present. I mean, from the essential ones such as vitamins, minerals, some amino acids and some lipids, but also then other molecules which are important to be in the feed, which is a challenge in a particle which sometimes is as small as 100 micron. Then the next thing, one of our concepts is the tailoring the microdiets, because we believe that that we need to check for each species which is the most suitable microdiet, and we know by experience and what is the best diet for one species will not be the best diet for another species. This does not mean that each species needs one diet, but we'll have to check each diet if a good diet for one species also works for the other. And if you look at this graph, which you see here, we see here the growth curve up to 60 days of age, so the first 2 months of age for sea bream, Senegalese sole, white grouper, greater amberjack, and the bluefin tuna. And you see that the growth trajectories are very different, the growth rates are very, very different. And of course, with such different growth patterns, you could expect that there will be also different requirements for the microdiets. So especially if we talk about fast-growing species, I'll use this as an example. If we have fish larvae like Seriola, like tuna, like grouper, which have very high growth rates, I mean, they can have growth rates at 20% per day, 30, at some stages even 50% per day, meaning that in 2 days they will more than double their weight. So you can expect that for such a tremendous growth rate, you'll have exceptional requirements in terms of protein and all other nutrients. And so we believe that we do need special diets for these species, and of course they must. We have to take into account also the production technology, and the reality is that most of the available commercial diets were developed in Europe and also in Japan, targeting slower growing species. There are some specific diets for some of these species, but not for all, and it's not that common. So I will just show you some results. In this case of a trial we have done in a commercial hatchery in the Cadiz area in the south of Spain, for tuna blue, with greater amberjack, Seriola dumerili, and we did it in a commercial setting, as I said, at around 25 degrees, and what we saw after around 65 days of age, we could see that with our fast-performing diet prototype, which was very high in protein and simultaneously very high in lipid, which is not common to find in commercial diets, because most species will not require this both high protein and high fat or high energy. and compared to a very high quality commercial diet, but which had a lower protein content and lower fat content also, we could see that that the fast performance prototype was doing much better in terms of growth, but also fish were showing a lower size dispersion. They were easier to wean into the inert diet, so we could move from Artemia, and in this case they were also using copepods. We could stop using Artemia and copepods earlier than with the other commercial diet, and also by reducing size dispersion there was also less cannibalism problems, which is an issue in Seriola like in other species. So as a result of all these efforts we have in this in precision feeding for hatcheries, we have a commercial range of products, the hatchery feeds we call them, and there we have different products for different species. I mean, we have a diet for sole, we have Wingfast, which is a diet developed for Seriola, but also works well with nigger and other species. We developed the diet for Banglan Ras, which is being used at the moment in Scotland and also in Norway. And also we have launched more recently a micro diet for turbot, because we saw, for instance, that what was the optimal diet for sole was not the same, was not performing that well, not performing bad, but it was not performing that well for turbot, which in theory is a closed species. It's also a flatfish, but with different requirements apparently. So this we have launched as well for turbot. So if we go a bit more macro into aquafeeds in general, not just for larvae, but also for ungrowing, what we can see is that if we look at it from a historical perspective, we can see that I mean, if we look at what research that was being done at the mid-90s or up to the mid-90s, where the main focus was to have higher performance, to have as much growth as possible. And typically, we were using high levels of fish meal and fish oils as the golden standards for fish nutrition. I mean, we used to say that in fish nutrition, if we feed fish with fish, it's easy, because I mean, most likely we'll be complying with the nutritional requirements. We don't really need a very good nutritionist if we have a fish meal, fish oil based diet. Then, as we moved into close to the 21st century, people started to speak more and more about least cost formulations, optimizing the digestible protein to digestible energy, also to reduce FCR to the minimum for saving on costs, but also to reduce the environmental impacts, and also reducing the use of fish meal and fish oil started to be a priority from a sustainability point of view, because at that time, around the turn of the century, there were major concerns about the sustainability of many of the fish stocks. Still, there are, but these days there is more control on the stocks of fish that are being used for fish meal and fish oil. As in the last 10 years, people started talking, there's been a further evolution from people don't just want to talk about efficient feeds, people want to talk about precision feeds and about sustainable feeds. This has been the focus in the last 10 years, and especially in the last 10 years, and we also have been strongly involved in this effort in different projects with different of our customers. And the idea here is that, I mean, precision feeding, basically we aim at fine-tuning the requirements and also looking at functional feeds. So having feeds which go beyond the growth optimization, we are worried about keeping the fish as healthy as possible through the feed, and also to reduce the impacts of stressful events in fish's lives. And when we talk about sustainable feeds, we are mostly concerned about looking for alternative ingredients, also targeting new production systems, and of course we want them to be sustainable from the point of economical point of view, from the environmental point of view, and also from the social point of view. And one of the tools that we have been using to contribute to this precision feeding and to the sustainable fish feeds is by developing our pilot scale feed mill where we can produce custom-made aquafeeds. I mean, we can produce batches from 10 kilos to 500 kilos, pellet sizes from 0.5 to 22 millimeters using twin screw extrusion. For smaller feeds, we can also use low shear extrusion or cold extrusion. That's what we use for our larval feeds. Together with the twin screw extrusion, we often use vacuum coating if we want to have lipid or fat contents higher than 13–14%, depending on the formula. And we have of course, all the other necessary equipment, dryers, and so forth. This has been one of the tools that we have been making available to the industry, and it has been widely used in Europe. We have customers for this custom-made feeds bit everywhere in Europe and also in many countries outside of Europe. So we are happy to have this contribution. Also, if we talk about precision feeds and sustainable feeds, just as an example, and going into functional feeds, in the last 5 years, let's say, we have made an increasing effort to work on the functional feeds for our own projects in terms of the hatchery products, but also beyond that. So for on-growing fish, together with our customers and also some of our research partners. And if you look what are the main functionality targets in aquaculture, I mean, we try to compile here. It's most of you are familiar with them. I mean, we're trying to boost the fish immunity. We try to make the fish more resistant to disease or environmental challenges. When I say this, in this case, it's of course especially opportunistic pathogens. Then we want to promote host and microbiota stability. We have more and more information showing that the microbiota, if we get what it's often called dysbiosis, if we have alterations in the microbiota, sudden change in microbiota, this can cause major disturbance to the fish physiology and to performance. And health, of course. Then we also know that oxidative stress is a very relevant issue, and we have to keep the balance of the reactive oxidative substances which are produced by fish metabolism, and the fish has its own defenses, but sometimes they need some help, so we can also boost them if needed. Of course, we can also use these functional feeds to boost the growth. In some of this, indirectly, sometimes when we boost the ROS balance, we can improve also growth. So we have seen it at least in some of our larval diets that this can happen. And also, I mean, another use of functional feeds is to help fish to recover from diseases or from stress. Full events. So in a few words, when we talk about functional feeds, we are talking about improving nutrition beyond the nutritional requirements. And just to show you one of the tools that we have been using recently in this endeavor has been ex vivo screenings with the fish intestine. This is work being done in very strong collaboration with the Green Collab, an association which we are part and in which we have a strong collaboration, and there we have an in vivo model, so we can test, for instance, microalgae. We can see how they impact in ex vivo. So means it's a piece of bisected intestine which is incubated into certain conditions, and then we can do a fast tracking of bioactivities. We can identify some target functionalities. And well, by doing this ex vivo, we can reduce also the number of animals which are used for experimentation, and we can save time by running less nutritional trials and more focused nutritional trials. When we talk about the nutritional targets that we are looking, the functionalities, I mean, mostly with this method at the moment, we are looking at antioxidant response, at immune response, and at epithelium permeability. All these are fundamental aspects for fish health. And just showing you some, we have at the moment, together with the Green Collab, but many other research institutes in Portugal, and also with the Sorgal, an aquafeed company for larger fish here in Portugal. We have a national project, a very big national project, where we are looking at these functional feeds, both for larvae and for bigger fish. For bigger fish is more the interest of Sorgal, of course. And here I can just show you some quick glimpse of the results we get with the in vivo screenings. This is a PCA analysis where we collapsed all this. We have about 12 genes in each one of these points here. And what we see here is that, I mean, here we are testing a control, a positive control, and then we have three levels of a microalgae extract, in this case from Phaeodactylum, at different concentrations. Actually, with this ex vivo, that we also can have a first idea of what is the dosage of a certain functional ingredient or functional additive that we want to use in an in vivo trial. So actually, we found that actually we could show that Phaeodactylum has an impact on the fish health. We can promote fish health using this extract, and in particular at the lower doses actually was more effective than the higher doses that we used. So this gives an indication that we should not use the too high doses because it may have counterproductive effects. So one other tool which we have been providing to the industry, this has been done on a contract research terms, is the in vivo nutritional trials with fish and shrimp. And here in these trials, we want to evaluate the efficacy and or the tolerance of novel additives or raw materials, ingredients in different fish species or shrimp. Typically, we evaluate growth performance, digestibility, can also be palatability, nutrient retention, the effluent loads, pigmentation, and some flesh quality criteria, immunity, and we are in the way of installing also some disease challenge models. All this work in nutritional trials, we do it through our sister company, Research, which will, as I said, we have a very strong integration. Again, we do these trials. We do it with the most relevant target species for not just for European but for world aquaculture. I mean, freshwater, including trout, Nile tilapia, and carp, and also for marine fish. We have done trials with sea bass, sea bream, turbot, sole, white leg shrimp, and also Atlantic salmon. Just calling your attention also, I mean, Research recently got approved a project on digital technologies for aquaculture and marine economy, where Research will be able to test technologies like sensors, real-time data collection, software validation, feeding models. This can be tested by Research with a very strong support by a national project. So this it's a kind of, for some of you may have heard about the AquaExcel scheme. Is not the same. It's not 100% free of charge, but it's highly subsidized. So you may want to have a look at this or contact us. Then if we go to the digital nutritional tools, we have this has been one of the areas where SPAROS has been making a stronger investment in the last years, and here I mean our main tool is the Feednetics, a software for prediction of fish growth, feeding costs. We can also predict the biochemical composition of the fish and also the waste production. This is a software which is available in the market as is a web app. We also provide services based on it. It has been fully calibrated and calibrated and validated for sea bream, sea bass, rainbow trout, Atlantic salmon, and Nile tilapia. And for this calibration, we used more than 500 data sets, including 280 scientific publications, also some own data sets from our research projects, and so it has been a thorough work to do this. And the calibration validation of this of the feednetics model has been recently published. You can see it. It's open access. Here I'll just show the validation for the Nile tilapia, where you can see that we have a quite reasonable fit between the predicted and observed values in practice, using data sets which were completely independent from the ones used in calibration, as it should be. We also have another nutritional tool, the feeding tables, where basically we can estimate feeding tables, if we give a growth curve and the feed composition, basically protein and energy in the feed. We have a database of previous times which will help us to estimate what is the optimal feeding at different sizes and different temperatures, so to optimize FCR, basically. So estimating the feeding requirements. So in terms of the digital nutritional tools, we have the feeding tables, feednetics, and we also have worked with some customized tools in some R&D projects and also for some of our customers. And if you talk about nutritional tools, the important thing is that, and that's our strategy. I mean, we have to define a clear objective. What do we want the tool to do? Then we have to find data to build the tool with. Data have to be reliable and representative of the different contexts, of course. Then we have to find an approach to create an algorithm to model this data, and then we can extract values to make predictions, basically. So putting all this together, I mean, what we have been trying to do is to integrate as much as we can all these different tools, our small-scale feed mill, our diets, including the hatchery feeds, run nutritional tiles whenever needed, and also complement them with these nutritional or the digital nutritional tools. And one of the main tools also we have been using in this effort is to participate in R&D projects. And this is what we have been doing. And all this is only possible because we have a team which is now including both SPAROS and research. We are 36 people at the moment. You can see the faces. I will not say all the names. I will just thank for the ones who have contributed mostly to this presentation with slides and concepts. George, Tomé, and Philippe, and Teresa, and all the others as well have contributed in many ways. And I'll thank you for your attention. If you want to see some images of SPAROS on the go, you can watch our video. And also, well, I invite you also to come and visit us in Portugal and also see the beautiful beaches of Algarve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luis, for a great presentation you just did. I'm taking the invitation. I'm going to come and visit you in SPAROS in Portugal. But let's start now with the questions we received from the audience. And let me also tell you that if you have any questions, now is the time to ask Luis. So the first question is from Hien from Ghent University. Thank you, Dr. Luis, for your presentation on the promising microdiet for fish larvae. I'm curious about the main challenges that microdiet faces in fully replacing live feeds, such as Artemia, for marine fish larvae.
Yes. Thank you very much for that question. A very interesting question. In fact, I mean, when we talk about macrodiets, one of the holy grails is to try to replace as much as possible live feeds. I mean, live feeds, they are great tools as well. I mean, rotifers, artemia. Also, these days, there are also other live feeds such as barnacle larvae. There is also barnacle naupli, also copepod naupli, which are commercially available these days. All these are great tools, but typically they are some of them, they're not easy to obtain. Rotifers and artemia, they are easier to obtain and also cheaper, but still they don't have the optimal nutritional profile that fish larvae require, or at least most fish larvae require. So the holy grail has been to try to use microfeeds, so inert microfeeds, as early as possible in the development. And we believe that's the way to go, and we have been making strong efforts in that direction as well. For some species, it's easier than others. The main challenge, I would say, there are three main challenges. One is to produce very small particles which have all the nutrients and which are stable to leaching, which brings us to the second challenge, is to find the right technology to produce these microdiets. And the third challenge, and I think actually at the moment, I think that's the biggest challenge, it's to find ways to use them in an effective way in practical hatcheries. I mean, we have done experiments in labs. For instance, we have done over the years several experiments with the aquaculture research group at CCMR, the University of Algarve, using in small tanks, and we can replace a lot of live feed with microdiets, and we have made a lot of progress there. But we can do it, and we get relatively good results. The difficult thing is that the challenge is to keep the tanks clean. And in these trials, as we used small tanks, 100 to 200 liters, we manage. But then if we go to the industry, to tanks which are 5 cubic, 10 cubic, sometimes more, then it's a major challenge to find ways to keep the tanks clean when using a microdiet. Because rotifers and artemia, they will be washed away by the water if they are not eaten by the fish. So it's not always easy, but it's easier than with the microdiet. So that's the big challenge, to find the right technology to provide the feed and to clean the feed that is not eaten from the fish tanks, I would say. More than the nutritional. The nutritional, we still have some challenges, but that's the main challenge why it's not being used more in practice by the fish hatcheries, I think.
Thank you very much, Luis. The next question we have for you is from Marcus. Thanks for the nice presentation. How do you determine the requirements of the broodstock of larvae before creating a test new diet?
Okay, this question goes about broodstock feeds. We do have a broodstock, actually we have 2 broodstock commercial diets, and actually as for larvae, estimating requirements for a broodstock is also extremely difficult, not for the same reason. The major reason is that it's very difficult to perform trials with broodstock. Very few research institutes have facilities where this can be done. In Europe, I can only think about 2 or 3, and even that it's limited. I mean, they can test 2 or 3 diets at a time, not more than that. So it's extremely difficult to make this kind of research. So in practice, what we do is that, I mean, we feed we estimate the requirements by excess. Of course, for protein and for lipids, this is relatively easy to do. We can put additional protein, additional fatty acids, additional phospholipids, and to a certain level, there is little risk in doing this. But then with micronutrients such as vitamins and minerals, it's a bit more tricky, because we know that sometimes the threshold between the requirement and toxicity for some minerals and even for some vitamins, it's narrow. So we can create a problem. So what we do, we estimate the requirement. It's more an educated guess than anything else. It's the best we can do at the moment for broodstock. For some species, there are some knowledge on some nutrients, but not for all of them. Not as much as we would like to have for our commercial diet. So I will not say they are perfect. I think they are good, ours, and also the other commercial diets which are available for broodstock, which follow more or less the same principles that I'm saying.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Luis. The next one is from Serva. Thanks, Dr. Luis, for the nice presentation. Could you substitute the whole of fish meal and fish oil with other sources?
Well, this depends on species and also on the quality of the other sources which we have available. But the short answer is that for most species is yes, we could. But very often what we see is that if we do that, the feeds become more expensive actually. And even if we look at these days, people evaluate. I didn't talk about that, but when we talk about feed formulations, these days people talk about carbon footprint, about life cycle assessment, LCA, and what we see for instance, in the GAIN project, we have done this. We have tested alternative formulations which had they were not zero fish meal, but had very little fish meal and no fish oil. What we have seen is that these formulas they were performing well. They were performing generally well compared to a fish meal rich and fish oil rich diet, let's say, but they were more expensive, and also where we were surprised that the carbon footprint was not that good actually, because some of these alternative ingredients they still consume a lot of energy to be produced, so they have a strong footprint. Of course, this depends a lot how you calculate the carbon footprint and so forth. It's not an easy issue, but this is something that there's a lot of research on this, and we have better and better tools for this. But I think it's safe to say that having a fish meal and fish oil free diets, it's not necessarily the right path for every species. Yes, be it for carbon footprint reasons, be it for economic reasons, or both. Yeah, and then some species, we know, for instance, for rainbow trout, it's relatively rainbow trout in a way is an exception from the species we culture in Europe. That the ones I know best. We know for rainbow trout we can make a zero fish meal, zero fish oil diet, and that will perform well and will have a reasonable cost. But for instance, for turbot, this is a bit more tricky. More research is still needed if we want to have such a zero fish meal, zero fish oil diet. But again, fish meal and fish oil, they are much more. Most of the sources that we have available these days, they are much more sustainable than what they used to be, or at least we have more data to support this claim that we can use some fish meal and some fish oil in a sustainable way. What we know is that cannot be the source for the whole aquaculture industry because there is not enough fish meal and fish oil. Okay, so as we see it in SPAROS, there is nothing wrong in using fish meal and fish oil, but we have to use it for the right applications, and we have to make sure that we have good sources which are from sustainable and responsible fisheries, basically.
Yeah, of course, it makes sense. Let's start with the next question. Nice presentation. Do feeding table and feednetics also applicable for predicting the growth during the larval stage?
No. The quick question is no. Feednetics and also the feeding tables, they were developed for more for the on-growing stage, or let's say for fish with more than 5 grams of size. So late nursery and on-growing stage. And the reason for this is that, I mean, for both feednetics and for feednetics and also for the feeding tables, we had to develop algorithms. We had to calibrate these algorithms with empirical data, so with the publications, with trial data. And one very important input for feednetics that we have to, or for these algorithms, is to tell how much the fish were eating. And in fish larvae, we know very well how much we are giving to the fish, how much we are feeding the tank. We don't know exactly how much the fish are eating. Or saying in other words, in the fish larvae, there's a lot of feed waste. To feed larvae properly, we have to waste a lot of feed, and then we cannot calibrate properly these kind of models. But with bigger fish we can, because we have a bit more control. There is always, of course, some feed waste, but we can control the feed waste to a large extent. But having said this, we are working on it, on having precision tools, digital tools for hatcheries as well, at least for nurseries. We want to go at least to 1 gram. Below that, we are not sure if we will manage, but we would like to have such tools as well.
Thank you, Luis. As a fermentation media for microalgae-based feed additives, what is your suggestion, for example, enzymes or yeast bacteria?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, Anna?
Yes, no problem. As a fermentation media for microalgae-based feed additives, what is your suggestion, for example, enzyme or yeast/bacteria?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not an expert in fermentation. I mean, we have tested many, I mean, many microalgae products, some yeast, some bacteria as well. I mean, what I can tell in that respect, I mean, what I know is that, I mean, all these ingredient sources, I mean, microalgae, yeast, bacteria produced by fermentation, they are all very interesting ingredients. They are emerging. I mean, there is major companies which have been investing a lot in developing stable ingredients, because what we need for the feeds that we want to have raw material which we know how much protein, how much fatty acids, how many minerals it will have. And this work has been done, and both at the industry side and also at the research side. For instance, I mentioned earlier the Green Collab. They have been working a lot with microalgae in selecting strains, and they have been and they are working on that, selecting strains, improving them, characterizing the conditions to produce them. So there is a lot of work to do there for sure, and it's very challenging work, but it's important work because we need this type of ingredients if we want aquaculture to grow with the targets that FAO and other organizations have set for the coming years. We need to have more ingredients and high quality ingredients, and for a reasonable price. It's always also a big issue.
Yeah. Indeed.
People don't want to pay a lot for their fish, so the farmers cannot pay a lot for their feed either. One thing comes with the other.
Perfect. Let me ask you about now when you mentioned the fish farms. Can the fish farm use your Feednetics software daily to examine the daily intake of feed?
Well, at the moment, the web app that we have for Feednetics, it does not allow this. Feednetics is not a daily fish farm management software. There's different solutions for that in the market, which allow you to manage the feeding and to adjust and to all that, and to record it and to connect it to automatic feeders, all these kind of things. What Feednetics is unique is that it predicts what will happen if you feed different feed formulations or if you feed different amounts, how this interacts, the feed formulation with the amount, and also, for instance, with the temperature. What we are doing is that, I mean, we are collaborating with some of these suppliers of farm management software. We are collaborating with some of these companies to integrate Feednetics into their software. So, for instance, I mentioned that we are involved in some Eurostars projects. So, in one of these Eurostars projects, actually, we are collaborating with a Greek company which has very much used the software for farm management. We are trying to integrate the two softwares together so that they can give even a better service to the fish farms. So So the short answer is not yet, but soon Feednext will be available also on a daily basis to farmers as well.
That's great news. Good luck with all the work you are doing right now with that. Let me do the next question. Hi, Luis. Do you produce micro diets for shellfish at SPAROS? Thanks in advance. Great presentation.
Yes, shellfish. It's quite interesting. We have been looking at it for some years now. We have made some prototypes. We have joined some projects or made diets for some projects which were using micro diets for shellfish. The results are reasonable. I don't say they are fantastic. I mean, we don't have commercial products because also there is no clear market demand for such products, but it is possible. It's under certain circumstances. It can be interesting to use inert macro diets for shellfish. What we have, I mean, if we talk about shellfish, what we have done for several research projects has been that's not a micro diet, but we have made diets for sea urchins. If you include them in your shellfish definition, which I think you could. But that's not a macro diet. Then it's that's a large diet. But it has its own challenges. Again, it needs specific technologies as well. But it's an interesting avenue, and we would like to do more work on that on micro diets. But I mean, the thing, macro diets for shellfish. The thing is that, I mean, there should be more interest from the industry, from the shellfish producers. I mean, if we talk about mollusks, for instance.
Thank you, Luis. But let me just add that this person also asked which species of shellfish.
So the shellfish. I mean, I guess that with shellfish you're talking about mostly about mollusks.
Mm-hmm.
And bivalves, and so I mean the microdiet, they were tested with clams, with razor clams. It was at least with 4 species. I cannot tell you exactly. Cannot tell you exactly which species they were, but there were at least 4 species. There was also cockles, I think, razor clams, and yes, not oysters. I think oysters we have not done it yet.
Thank you very much.
Actually, yeah. We have done also for another project. We have done also with oysters, yes. But the results, they were not fantastic with oysters. The results were not. But we made some prototypes for oysters as well. Yes, actually we did.
Great. Let me ask from Gloriana Cardinaletti from University of Udine in Italy. Nice presentation, Luis. Does the digital nutritional tools is able to estimate requirements, macro and micronutrients for the gene selected species? If yes, for which one?
Thank you, Gloriana, for your nice question. Yes and no. I mean, in In theory, yes. In practice, it's difficult to accomplish. We are involved. Actually, it's an ongoing project. European project is still from Horizon 2020 called Aqua Impact. If some of you, it's the project with a lot of interesting results. Aqua from aquaculture and then Impact from Impact. It's a project coordinated by people at Luka in Finland, and where we are having interaction between people working in fish nutrition and also in fish breeding. And actually, we have been trying to do this for sea bass, sea bream, and also to a less extent for salmon, but also for trout. And actually, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, if we really we manage to incorporate to somehow the effect of genotype into feednetics, we can predict for different phenotypes by changing some of the parameters in feednetics. That is possible. But if you want to estimate requirements, well, first micronutrients. The answer is no. I mean, feednetics is not modeling micronutrients. So feednetics is modeling amino acids, fatty acids, basically fatty acids, basically protein and fat metabolism. So fatty acids and amino acids. It goes to the level of fatty acids and amino acids. But I mean, for vitamins and minerals, for instance, it's feednetics is not modeling that. Also because we don't know enough to produce algorithms and to calibrate. We don't have enough data to calibrate these algorithms. Okay, so for macronutrients, in theory, if we have some good data sets from different genotypes, in theory, yes, we can calibrate the feednetics, and by doing that, we can estimate the requirements. So we can use, let's say, the feednetics in the reverse way to calculate parameters instead of to make predictions. So we could do it, but then we must have very good data sets for different genotypes, for instance.
Thank you very much, Luis. I will just tell you that in case you have one or two more questions, now is the time to ask them, because we are coming close to the end of the webinar. But I would like to ask you, Luis, is it already happening that the industry is taking the new technology, as per se, the digital tool?
To a certain extent, I mean, the industry is more and more using sensors to control not just the temperature that has been there for a long time, also oxygen levels, and there is more and more such tools being used, and now together there is more and more these platforms using the Internet of Things. So the industry is using it more and more, but it's mostly to control and for alarms, as far as I know. To use digital tools for precision feeding, I would say that the aquaculture industry is still at its infancy. Okay, so most fish farms, even in Norway, where in Europe, where the industry is more developed, or it's also the oldest industry. I mean, large size industry. Even there, I mean, feeding is mostly. I mean, they're using basically what they use mostly. It's video cameras to avoid excessive feeding. But it's still very much operator based. So someone is watching this video camera. It's not algorithm based yet work, which probably could be also. I mean, of course, it's good to have also an operator checking this from time to time. But of course, the operator cannot be checking every time, and every cage. It's watching one cage at a time, of course. So, but I think it will. They're using more and more, but I think it will come. They will have to go in that direction, because, I mean, as I said, feeding is one of the major costs one of the major operational costs. So any savings in the feeding, it will translate into higher returns for the fish farming companies. So they will have to go that way. Our job is to make tools as good as possible that empower that, we and other people. Yes, we the research community, let's say, and the companies supplying this kind of services.
Yeah, it seems that you are on a really good path for that. Actually, we did not receive any more questions from the audience. Now only the comment from Neophytis Argotis from Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institute. It's just a comment. Thank you, Luis, for a very informative presentation. And besides him, you received many other compliments on a great presentation. So on behalf of the EAS, I would like to thank you for giving amazing webinar and for joining us today and presenting your company and the work you do. In case you have any questions for Luis that you don't want to ask right now, you have there on the last slide of his presentation, his email address, so feel free to contact him and visit SPAROS website. Let me just, we received just something from, my name is Juan Antonio Gonzalez, Precision Farming Manager for Spreading Southern Europe, and I would like to underline we have been applying precision feeding for many years now with disruptive technology IoT for more than 1 year now. Okay, it's just the comment.
Thank you, Antonio, for the clarification.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I'm happy that Scrating and other companies, they are making this this effort to in direction of precision feeding. As I said, that's the direction that we all need to go. So.
For sure. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. By the beginning of the next week, I will send you the video recording, and you can also download the slides on the EAS website. In case, as I said, any questions for you, Luis, just email him. And it was nice to see all of you in a big number today. For the following webinar, the next week, I will include the information in the email. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you next month. Thank you, Luis.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you all for attending as well. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.